Not even retirement from YouTube can stop Jodi Day. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody. Good to have you all here.
Yes, it is great to see you all. I see Vicky in the chat, and John, and Danielle is in the chat. Hey, Danielle. Welcome. See you all, Stray. Nice. I saw Stray posting all the links. Remember, Nick and I are dual streaming this, and our chats, our respective streams rather, are linked at the top of the chat. So head on over and give each other some views, but give me all the likes. That's the goal. Give me all the likes. You're already winning. I'm looking at
They
this
can
now.
have all the likes as long as I get the super chats and gifted memberships.
Speaking of, with the growing popularity of some of these expert witnesses that we've been watching today, included, we have a super chat to skip. $1 equals
Yeah,
1
but
minute.
I do want to hear at least 20 minutes of her direct examination to begin with, because we might witness the actual birth in public in a trial, the believe all women argument.
Well, we do, and so I've watched the first hour and 22 minutes. Actually, I've watched more of this direct examination. Yeah, you are. I was going to ask about that. Did you like put your thumbprint on the camera or something?
No, unless my asshole cat did something stupid.
He's a lot. There you go. That's better.
Yeah.
Did you have like a weird filter or something?
No, I changed down to 480 because I still have these issues with if I am in the same frame as more people, they tend to get cloggy. Am I mic in the next room? What?
Use your mic in the next room. They're saying that you're quiet, which I noticed as well. But all right, well, I'm setting myself up to automatic, which is what Nick is set to. So hopefully our volumes will now be equalized, and it won't sound like Nick is far away and I'm up close. So I'm rusty at this. We got to figure this out.
Better? Folks,
yeah, that works. Actually, yeah, that's a lot better.
Okay.
Okay. So, like I said, I watched the first hour and a half of this woman's testimony. And this is really getting it's an hour and a half, right? It's an hour and a half, but she's really getting into the birth of words are violent. So I didn't know if we wanted to do a summary, if I should give a summary of what she said, or if we should actually listen to it, because this is really the birthplace of it. Words are violent, right? A man can be verbally assaultive to you to the point where it terrorizes you. So words are terror. There's all kinds of stuff. And so should we start at the beginning of this woman's at this day?
I haven't heard at least 20 minutes, because now Brandon has paid for a 2-minute speed up, but at least the first 20 minutes I want to listen to.
I'll start at 2 minutes into the day. Ha ha ha. How about that? We'll do it that way. All right. Okay, so this is our friendly neighborhood psychologist who says that all men are bad. And we're taking the skip off for a minute. So the skip won't apply. Look at that. You're getting all the gifted memberships in the super chats. That's to be deserved, though. That's to be deserved.
Oh, yeah. But thank you, Amy, Ohio, for gifting a membership. And it went to DK Cripple. Yay!
Payback for me leaving. Fair enough.
You're absolutely correct. And for Amy and DK Cripple now, tomorrow, members only stream. And if you remember, at Dave's and at mine, we will have a simultaneous members only stream.
By the way, can I talk about what this is like the worst time of year, period? Because every time I go to the store, there's these little gremlins. They are
called children.
outside of the store selling me Girl Scout cookies.
Oh,
And I spend a fortune on these things, and they're so good, though.
yeah. I mean, every Christmas and every end of the school year, all my nieces and nephews are selling some magazines, smoked sausages, cookies, and they all call me. And I either have to tell everybody no or everybody yes. I have 14 nieces and nephews.
You just buy one from each of them, and then you're good, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but here's the thing. If you look at the cookie packages, it's like a good package of cookies. I know what they cost. And then you add the company's profit on it, and then the kids' profit on top of that. So it's like 3 times the usual cost. And
oh yeah, no, I spend an arm and a leg on these Girl Scout cookies, but my favorite are the tagalongs. The tagalongs with the peanut butter on the inside. Look at that. Ooh, it's so good.
No, I'm a sucker for chocolate dipped oatmeal cookies.
Those are my wife's favorite too. It must be a Scandinavian thing.
Yeah, you have a good wife.
All right, well, let's get into this woman. Let's see what she has to say. As usual, I'm putting it at 1.25. I actually watched it at 1.5. I didn't think it was bad, but we'll watch it at 1.25 like we always do. We have the volume up. Let me make sure it's boosted, although I think it's going to be a little too loud if it's boosted. So I'm going to boost it and then turn the volume down just a touch. We'll see how this goes.
Yeah, Dave and Amy, you can't get rid of me.
There we go.
Yeah, you can't get rid of me. I'm here for a good one. Remember, I told this when I started this channel on December 29th of last year. That's my start date of being an actual content creator. I said I will give myself 2 years to get monetized, and then we will see what my next goal will be. I got monetized in 15 weeks. So, and I really haven't updated my goals yet. What is the members stream going to be about? Well, you should see the
thumbnail says like horses and future and
horses, farms, and future.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's all about how to milk a horse and what we can do with that milk in the future.
No, I need your description of it. Just write down descriptive or record something that I can play without doing anything to that recording.
Well, I gave you a video. Nick has a video that he'll play.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the freaking cat knocking everything off the shelves. All right. So part of Nick's stream or his member stream will actually stream as a member stream on my channel as well, and you'll get, I guess, a video of me and Nick, so it'll be a good time. Girl Scout cannabis. Don't know if I've tried that one. The ladies are not selling it out this way. Girl Scout cookie cannabis. All right, let's get going on this woman. Let's see what she has to say. But you are really hearing the words are violence. Believe all women sort of approach is starting here back in 2013. If it plays.
With lots of organizations. Liz Claiborne.
What was that?
Thank you, Brandon. Here, this is my work weekend.
Oh yeah,
and so I can't, even if I wanted, I can't. But on Friday, I will have the Zachariah Anderson interview, and my wheel of regret will surface again. So yeah. But yeah, I know, Brandon. I have a few to finish off. Thanks to you. Thank you so much, Brandon.
Believe all holes. Yes, believe all holes. All right. Let's get into believe all holes.
Is one of them. Mary Kay is one of them. They have people from the NFL, but State Farm has continued to do that. And I'm on the advisory board, which actually means I do pretty much nothing. My name's just on the advisory board.
But did you do something when it first started?
I did. I worked really hard for 3 days when we worked 12-hour days to put this plan together.
All right. And when was this?
It was it was the mid 90s, but I'm not sure the exact year.
Okay. And when you're doing trainings and you're giving a speech, I would imagine, to a group of people, do you ever, in those trainings, I mean, it's obviously about a very serious topic, but do you ever use humor in your trainings?
I do use humor in my trainings.
Why is that?
I use humor in my trainings because it's such a serious topic and because it's hard for people to listen. And some of my trainings are all-day trainings, but even if they're 2-hour trainings, it helps people to take it in. It's easier to listen if you can occasionally laugh and spend some of the tension that you have when you're hearing about things like this. So, for instance, I tend to say things kind of spontaneously. And I was asked once why people come into my program. Why would they?
It explains what she does with regard to training. It goes to her experience.
They asked, why would people come into your program? And I said, well, for the most part, people don't come into my program because they think personal growth is far out and they can't wait to do it. That they come in either because their partners leave or threaten to leave and they really take that seriously, or God speaks to them through the SWAT team and they have a religious experience. And so people thought that was funny and they laughed at it. And I also said that I think it's a very hard thing for people to ask for help. That asking for help when you hurt people that you love is a very difficult thing. And so being able to sort of balance that out helps people to listen and helps people to take things in, I think.
All right. And in your experience, have you ever worked with the military?
I currently work with the military, but it's in a program called Heroes and Healthy Families. I do training. I've done training at 29 Palms, Camp Pendleton, and Barstow for the Marines, and for both the family services folks in the Marines and the also for the Marines themselves. Heroes and Healthy Families is a really wonderful program that a judge in California, Judge Isles, and
Oh yeah, I forgot. Like the vast majority of like the first half hour is still her credentials before she goes into like her findings. So we're still talking a lot about her like foundation of the basis of her knowledge.
her court assistant, Leslie Howard, put together. And it's basically to expand the notion of not leaving your buddies behind, to include mental health issues. And it's supported by the generals. It's a really wonderful program. And what they do is they expand the notion to suicide, homicide, child abuse, spouse abuse, substance abuse, and they have speakers on all of those topics. In fact, there's a YouTube video that I didn't put on there. I found out one of my friends
YouTube.
called and said, "You're on YouTube, Alice." I didn't know I was. And it was from Heroes and Healthy Families, and it's on PTSD and domestic violence. And so they use all of those videos, and they have people from the military speak, primarily from the military speak, and then I speak for those groups too. And they're usually 600 to 800 enlisted men, sergeants, usually enlisted men that come. And then there are retired military. We've had Congressional Medal of Honor winners speak about wishing they had gotten help and that sort of thing. So it's very moving.
You talked a little bit about when you first started in the late 70s and early 80s that domestic violence wasn't something that people really paid attention to. Is that right?
That's correct.
In the beginning, when you first started
prosecutor
training
looks
and
so
speaking
bored.
about domestic violence and battered women, did you ever face any type of discrimination or type of name calling, being called things like a man hater or being accused of things like that?
Approach.
Oh God. Okay.
That was an interesting line of question. Have you ever been called a man hater? And yeah, it kind of gets obvious where they're leaning now.
Right. Yeah. This is really like the first public display of this sort of believe all women, words are violence, words can be terror sort of thing.
Yeah, but why would the defense say this open? Have you ever been called a man hater? I mean, for me,
Not because she wants to get out ahead of it. I would
Yeah,
say,
okay.
if there's something negative that your witness is going to testify to, let's address it, talk about it, and then move on.
Mhm.
Good afternoon, genitals.
But it's good that the prosecution objected to it. Then they won't maybe, okay, we will remove it, but because then he can't. He
Yeah,
already objected to it.
yeah.
Yeah, she's the expert for Jodi.
Discrimination when you first started.
What's that?
Justin, she's the expert for Jodi? Oh, yeah.
May proceed.
Yeah. She's one of two experts for Jodi. The first one was a sex therapist that talked a lot about all of the memory issues, which seems weird. A sex therapist is talking about memory issues. But this therapist is talking about primarily that using words to control people is just the same as physically beating them. And so Jodi was terrorized by Travis because he used his words to
More or
terrorize.
less, even without any marks, any evidence whatsoever, the words he used is enough for self-defense.
Dang it, I missed a sex therapist. You didn't miss much. You didn't miss much after the first day. We skipped ahead.
What does Santa Claus say about? Oh, wait a minute. You haven't seen this, have you?
No.
Hold on, I will give you the clip.
What is Santa Claus?
Yes. What does Santa Claus uploading, processing?
Oh, you uploading a video?
Yeah, it's just 5 seconds. Well, what does Santa Claus say about Jodi? Well, maybe she is a ho ho ho, says Santa Claus.
I've never seen that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
She's a ho ho ho. Nice. All right, $2. We skip 2 minutes here. Where are we at now? 9.
Yeah.
Close
Santa Claus is a personality that I used when I reported about Fannie Willis finally admitting she did the honky ponky with Nathan Wade. And I also found old articles where she was allegedly having affairs with her clients when she was a defense attorney.
Oh, well, it happens. Why are the cats fighting right now? Hey, Melissa. Let's see. Oh,
thank you, John. Thank you, John. I appreciate it very much.
All right. Remember, $1 per minute. We can skip ahead. This is the foundation of the Believe All Women approach to therapy.
And that because you didn't have enough time to dedicate to that particular case.
Yes, in fact, I
Question.
So have you recently turned down a case?
turned down a case yesterday.
Okay. And is that because you don't have enough time to dedicate to it?
It's because I didn't have time to do a good job on a case, and I don't want to do a case unless I can do a good job on a case.
All right. And also, have you turned down cases because there's not enough information there for you to make a good analysis?
Yes, I've turned down cases where I didn't feel there was enough evidence to merit my participation in that case.
Okay. Now you've been, have you testified before?
Yes.
I forget that it always puts it in your name too, Nick, but oh well.
In other cases?
I've testified about 18 times.
18 times, okay.
Yes.
And have you ever testified or worked on behalf of, been retained by people who were representing a man?
Yes.
So have you ever testified on behalf of a man?
I was actually sitting in court to testify and was not called, but I sat there for 6 hours ready to testify.
Okay, and that for a client who was a man?
Yes.
Okay.
Who was accused of domestic violence.
Oh, okay. So he was accused of domestic violence and you were on his side of the case.
Well, he was accused of domestic violence and I was able to get him into
Being asked whose side she represented.
Okay. Were you retained by his defense?
I was retained in a family law case. It wasn't
Criminal.
It wasn't a criminal case.
Okay. And have you testified on when clients have been women?
Yes, I have.
All right. And obviously you're testifying in this case. Were you retained in this case?
Yes, I was.
And do you remember when you were retained?
I was, I think, first interviewed in September of 2011, and I began working on the case in October of 2011.
did you say, when were you first interviewed? September, did you say?
I think the very end of September or the beginning of October.
Okay, in 2011?
Yes,
And are you being paid on this case?
yes, I am.
And how much do you get paid an hour?
$250 an hour for research and $300 an hour for court appearance.
All right.
Who wants her job? I'll tell you what you want for $250 an hour.
I want to talk to you some more about some of the articles that you've created, or that you've written, I guess.
Yes,
Did you ever write an article in a journal that for child custody?
yes, I did.
Okay. And in doing so, did you ever author something called a continuum of aggression and abuse?
Yes, I did.
And what is that?
This is what I was talking about.
The continuum of aggression and abuse is a way to look at domestic violence and aggression that can also occur in otherwise healthy families, isolated acts of aggression. And it looks at a range of behavior and a range of responses, and then looks at some exacerbating factors that can play into these cases. It's so that we don't look at domestic violence in kind of a one-dimensional way, but
Where's
look at a real
John?
range. And part of that is to be able to look at how we intervene in these cases so that we're intervening more effectively.
All right. How did you go about making something like this?
Well, initially, I saw a continuum that was created by Michael Johnson in 1994. And he had a continuum that was anchored on one side with what was called common couple violence, and the other side with patriarchal terrorism, because what he was looking at were men who were in batterers intervention programs. And he was looking at what was called common couple violence, which was what he called most of domestic violence.
Here we go.
Well, you wanted to preface this with something?
No, she just said patriarchal tyranny.
Yep.
That's
yep,
an
yep,
interesting phrase of words.
All this stuff that we've been hearing with all the Amber Turd and all of that believe all women stuff, it all started here.
Which was hitting, pushing, slapping, grabbing, and what he called mild injury. And then looking at patriarchal terrorism, which was looking at not only extreme domestic violence, but the use of the system, whether that be a spiritual system, whether that be a criminal justice system, whether that be a child custody system, whether that's finances, but use of the system. And I liked that he did a continuum, but I thought it needed to have more points on the continuum than just two.
So how do you do that? You have a continuum, and then, but you wanted to add more data to it or more information to it?
I wanted to add more breadth to it, but I also wanted to look at the fact that in healthy families, there can be isolated acts of aggression that happen in those families, and that we don't call everything domestic violence, that we look at a context that it's occurring in so that we're better able to describe it.
So is that part of what you did when you created the continuum?
Yes, I did that. And I also used, there was research done in the 90s by Amy Holdsworth Monroe and Gregory Stewart. And what they did was they took 10 pieces of research and they kind of put them together. And they took the similarities from each of those pieces of research and created what were called behavioral typologies, which are simply what are the similar behaviors in each of these groups of abusive people. And they were like family only, people who don't do anything outside of the family, and pretty much it's very hidden from everybody else. And moved to what was called borderline or dysphoric or overly controlled hostile, which are people that would act out more in public as well. And then they used antisocial. And antisocial were people that usually had some sort of experience in the criminal justice system, may have been arrested, may have a rap sheet, that sort of thing.
All right. Did you use that information to help create your continuum?
I used that, and I used my experience, and also I network regularly with people in the field. I'm in an organization, we meet monthly, and I talk to other people who are doing the work, and I talk to people around the country, and actually some people in other countries who are doing the work. And so I used all of that to put together my
You all know
continuum.
what to do.
All right. Judge, may I approach the witness?
Yeah, you do.
I'm showing you
$1
what's been
per
exhibit
minute
number
of skip.
515. Do you recognize this?
Yes, that's my continuum.
All right. This is something you created?
Yes, it is.
All right. And would it help you when we talk about the continuum to be able to look at it and be able to talk about it and explain it to the jurors? To be able to look at it?
It could help.
See, like, I don't find her testimony boring, but it doesn't pertain to Jodi's case, right? So this isn't like very compelling for Jodi's case, but this is ground zero for the whole believe all women, Me Too, words are violent, words are terrorism stuff.
Yeah.
I found that fascinating.
She might have been in trials before, but this is the first televised where women like Jodi, Amber, and that woman that Jeff is covering, Jane Doe with the twin tonsils.
Oh yeah.
That kind of women. They saw this trial. They saw her testimony and thought, I can use this.
Yep. No, that's exactly what happened. I find it fascinating for that reason.
And this is what's hurting women who is actual victims of abuse. That one.
But I know it pretty well.
All right, would it help the jurors to be able to
It
understand?
would help the jurors, yeah.
All right, Judge, defense moves for exhibit
Yes,
number
Salvador.
558 into evidence.
Objection, hearsay and learned treatise.
That was a stupid objection. That's a stupid objection. I don't know why he did that. Just didn't want it in for some reason. He was like, I need to object to something. I need to break this up.
Pinium. Let's get it all on there. Okay. All right. All right. So what I want to do is I want you to be able to explain what this is, because just looking at it doesn't necessarily tell us what.
Oh, we got a $10 super chat to move on 10 minutes. All right. There we go. All right, we moved on. We missed her exhibit, but no one really talks about it other than putting it on the screen.
Oh, darn it. I was looking forward to that.
Abuse. We see name calling, but not character assassination yet.
Yes,
Is that right? Okay.
yes.
And then verbal abuse, but not psychological. What's the difference?
Well, in a way, it's splitting hairs. And what I mean is that kind of name calling or cussing, that sort of thing. I remember one of the men that I worked with who came in who said, I came home to my family and nobody was there.
Objection,
And
hearsay.
they left me a note to call you. And I don't
Why is he
understand because I've
referencing-
never done anything.
Well, she's qualified as an expert, so she's allowed to testify with using hearsay if it's used in forming her opinion. So it's not offered for the truth of the matter asserted, but it can be used in forming her opinion. But this is where, so again, you're starting to see the signs, right? This is name calling. Name calling is abusive. She gets into like terrorism talk.
Physically abusive to
So
anybody
now
in
our
my family.
stream is going to be
And I
flagged.
said, well, what do you do when you get upset? What do you do when you
Talk
get
about
angry?
terrorism.
And he said, well, I yell. And I said, what kinds of things do you yell? He said, well, I scream and I curse and I, call them names and stuff. And I said, well, what else do you do when you're angry? I said, do you ever hit things or throw things? He said, yeah, I punch holes in the wall sometimes and I hit things. But I've never hit anybody in my family. And it took a while for him to understand that the family was sort of living, walking on eggshells about wondering what would happen when he got angry. What's going to happen when he gets angry? What's he going to do and how far is he going to go? And, what they said was, or what he said, well, they should know I wouldn't do this, but they don't know that. They're not sure how far it's going to go. So they live in sort of that walking on eggshells apprehension.
Okay. And incidentally, part of the treatment that you do with men's groups, is that working with somebody to understand how their actions affect other people?
Absolutely. We do a lot with empathy in our groups. And we actually look, because most of the men that we work with have come from families where they've been exposed to domestic violence or exposed to violence and abuse. And so I think they're adult victims of childhood abuse myself. And so we're doing, like, one of the things that I might do with them is to ask them to think about a time in their lives where they felt powerless or afraid prior to the age of 10, because they can begin to look back at their childhoods and then to think about what the situation was, to talk about the situation, to talk about who they had that they could talk to about it. Did they have a safe adult that they could talk to, or a safe family member that they could talk to, and who they avoided telling, and who they blamed, because a lot of people blame themselves for being victimized. And then what was the situation ever resolved? Because if it wasn't resolved and there wasn't a way to resolve it, it's hard to get over it. And then how they feel when they talk about it now, because part of that is looking at how long the effects of victimization are on people, so that they can look back to 10 and they can still feel things when they're 40 years old or 30 years old or 50 years old or 60 years old. They still have feelings about that. And it helps them to understand what it would be like for their family members.
Hypothetical.
I know. I had to take a minute to read it to make sure. I think there's some typos there.
Yeah,
Your flu-ridden wife.
Send you to get snacks. What do I get to my significant other when she is ill. I get her. In Sweden, there are heart-shaped potato chips, puffed potato chips. She can't get enough of them. For some odd reason, this heart-shaped is flavored with dill.
I get my wife absolutely nothing because she's Swedish and doesn't want to be coddled when she's sick. So there.
The nature of what's being done and how the person receives that.
I gotta go.
So it's what you're telling us, that there's no magical number of frequency before you can determine whether or not a relationship is abusive?
No, there's no magical number.
Okay. All right. And so, okay, back to battering. You were talking about what we see, that we see more frequent type of physical aggression. What else do we see?
You can see more public physical aggression. I've had people, there was a man in my group, we called him the drive-by fruiter because he carried literally raw fruit in his car. And when he had road rage, he would peg people. You know, we've had people that pull people off the freeway, run them off the road. We have people that walk through the mall and they don't like the way you look at them, and they wind up acting out.
And how is that related to domestic violence, though, when you're talking about people acting out on aggression to other people that are not in their own family?
Well, they're also acting out to people in their own family.
Okay.
But the other way of looking at that is vicarious trauma. So if I'm in relationship with somebody who's doing things to other people that are violent, it affects how I feel about my own safety. So if I, for instance, see my partner kick the side of a car in, which is an actual case, then I wonder what that partner is going to do to me, even if they haven't done something to me at that point.
Okay. Okay. All right. So you see, so there's more, this type of aggression. What else do you see?
You tend to see more controlling kinds of behaviors. That might be calling during the day to see if you're at work, or texting you a lot so that I know where you are, could include those kinds of things. And you tend to see a change in the name calling. It tends to sort of slide into the character assassination, into calling the person names, tearing their character apart. There also generally is sexual abuse that does not have to be, it does not have to be forceful, but it has to be coercive psychologically or some way. In other words, the person feels like they should participate in it. That could.
What does that mean? Right? This is well, I didn't really want to, but I didn't say no, and he didn't force me, but I didn't really want to, is now grape. That's where this comes from. All right.
Yeah.
Could be an example.
You mean that the victim of the relationship would
Yes.
have to feel like they
Yeah.
should
Yeah.
submit to some type of sexual acts?
Yeah. And you know, when
Irish.
they really may or may not want to, but they may feel like they need to keep the relationship intact. That can be part of it.
Okay. You talked about controlling and calling somebody or texting somebody throughout the day or a couple times to see where they are. What about looking at people's, what we have now these days, Facebook and MySpace and Twitter accounts, looking them up and seeing what they're up to?
See, I that's absolutely true. I don't think that way because it's not my generation and I don't tweet or text or anything, but I've got clients where that's part of what's happening. GPS stalking, we've seen more of, but that tends to be the more controlling behaviors tend to be in terrorism, but they also can be in battering, where you're looking at people using different ways to control people. So emails, texts, tweets, we've had people GPS stalk their, partners, that kind of thing.
All right.
When Jodi does
and jealousy,
the
you talked a
okay
little
sign,
bit. You started to talk
you
about
can't
jealousy.
help but at the same time.
Exactly.
What is it about jealousy? You said it's a controlling behavior. How is jealousy controlling?
Well, if you're dealing with someone who's jealous, what happens is they let you know in lots of ways that they are. And they don't have to be in obvious ways like saying, I don't want you to see so-and-so. They can be in ways that I give you the silent treatment when you come home after you've spent time with friends and I don't talk to you for a while. Or I ask you a lot of questions, I interrogate you.
No,
and I'm talking about people
behavior. Silent treatment is what women does.
Yeah, I know. All of this I feel like is projecting. The other idea too, that let's imagine there's a wife out there whose husband wants a little and she's not really in the mood, but she goes ahead and does it anyways because she wants to be a good wife. Is she now being abused under this theory? Right? It's just
actually worked with, these are things that they've said that they've done, where they are.
Wait, if I don't want to do the dishes, but I want to do it because the wife wants me to do it, but I don't really want to do it. Am I
Yeah,
being abused?
you are abused. You
I'm
are
abused,
you are
okay.
a victim. You are a victim of abuse if you do the
That's what I'm
dishes,
thinking.
although you don't want to.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking exactly.
Texting the person during lunch so that they know where they are, so that they're not really leaving their desk, or they're calling them at home and saying, I hope you're home so I can call you. They can be in subtle, less obvious ways.
Okay. And with when you talk about jealousy, is it always jealousy of other people? So if if we're talking about a man and a woman, and the man is saying to the woman, you're saying that the man is jealous. You talked about being interrogated or questioned about when the woman goes out with her friends. How is that jealousy when we're talking about maybe if she's going out with girlfriends?
That comes from, I think, the place of that deprivation, which is there's not enough love to go around. So if you're spending time with other people, you're taking it away from me, as opposed to you can spend time with other people and it actually can enhance our relationship. It's more, you're taking it away from me. And you're enjoying these things with other people, so it becomes threatening. Just that you're enjoying time with other people can be threatening.
Threatening to the abusive perpetrator. Okay. And you say putting down friends and family. What does that mean?
Doesn't that sound like Jodi is the abuser in that scenario?
Yeah.
When he spends time with other people, that could be threatening to Jodi, the abuser.
Yeah. It can be talking about put downs of other people's, their family and friends, like saying your family's gets in our way, they butt in, your family's stupid, your family, and it's usually not that obvious, by the way, at the beginning. People usually work up to this. It doesn't start there. But the whole notion of saying, your friend so-and-so said something about you, it can be
abusive relationship, but she is applying this only to men as perpetrators.
It assumes that people don't make compromises in their relationship.
Yeah.
Right? It assumes that someone doesn't think to themselves, I really don't want to do this thing. I really don't want to go out, but my spouse, my wife, my husband wants to go out and do this. And I love him and want him or her to be happy. So I'm going to go do this thing that I really don't want to do. All of this is part of being in a relationship, right?
Yeah. Now, sometimes it goes to extremes, and you're in family law. I'm assuming you have seen a few of those cases as well.
Just a few.
Just a few, yeah. And I mean, I'm not relationships, but in labor law, when it comes to the power structure between bosses and employees who sometimes enter relationships. Sometimes that can get real nasty in both directions.
Well, no, it absolutely, well, in all human endeavors and all human, whether you're jointly streaming on YouTube or you're in a romantic relationship or you're an employer-employee, all of it has levels of give and take and compromise and agreement to do stuff. So to say that amounts to abuse because the one didn't want to do it but felt obligated to or forced to is nonsense.
Are you referring to something here, Dave?
No. No.
I'm going to stop streaming. You will never see me again. 2 days later. Hi,
I'm streaming Jodi with Nick. There's compromises to be made, people. I'm not being abused by Nick.
Something like that. Or I wonder if so-and-so is a good friend because they did this or they did that. Or your family's hardly ever there for you. Or, those kind of things where you sort of create a wedge between the person and their family, or you create a way of looking at your the family, that sort of thing.
Okay. So it's not always, you're saying that it doesn't always start as calling the family members names necessarily?
No, it usually, when you're looking at domestic violence, there's an escalation over time in intensity and frequency. So you don't see things generally real drastically at first. Occasionally, you'll see a very drastic episode I remember one of the very first women at the battered women's shelter, and she was in the relationship for a while, but the first physical act was so intense that she said she saw stars, and she said, I knew that he could always do that. So he never had to do anything that serious again because I knew it was possible. For people who haven't had that kind of serious thing done, they anticipate that something more serious could happen.
Okay. What about destruction of property? Is that something you see more of in the battering column then?
Destruction of property happens in abuse and in battering, but it tends to be more extensive as you go across the continuum. So where you might see somebody punch a hole in the wall or kick a piece of furniture or, something like that in an abusive situation, as you move across the continuum, you can see something more extreme. One of the men in my group destroyed his wife's $25,000 crystal collection. That took some time. So what you see is the energy, the rage that goes over time that can create, that can be pretty terrifying, that can create that kind of sort of physical rant, if you will.
And part of destroying that property is, in that particular example, is that because it's directed to something that is hers.
That can happen, and it can happen to something that isn't particularly important to the person either. But absolutely, you see more direction. I remember one of the fellows ripped his wife was a gardener and ripped all the plants out of. And I worked with a woman who's they were both professional people, and he had very expensive
line for this. It can, so yeah, more or less. If there is any, there's never 50-50 in a relationship. Sometimes
If we
it's
don't skip
60-40
past it,
or 40-60, and on occasions it's 40-40 because you're both in a bad place. But if you work together, yeah, okay. But it always goes up and down.
if we don't skip past it, there's a part where she talks about terrorism, and there was a guy who was terrorizing his family because they got into an argument or something. I can't remember what it was. Like nothing physical. He didn't break anything. He didn't tear up flowers. It was an argument, and it was terrorism.
suits, and she cut his suits up. So that there's this destruction of something that is of value. You see more of that as you move across the continuum.
Okay. And what is self-absorbed? How does that refer to in this column?
Well, it's sort of looking at the world as it affects me. It's not being able to empathize very much. So I see the world as it affects me. So if I hurt you,
I don't know. If I spend $200 at CVS, which is a drugstore party store, that means I should spend $200 on booze, right? Yeah.
50-50. Don't be abusive towards your alcohol intake. Now, when you have bought the alcohol, might be jealous.
Women never terrorize men. That's a myth.
what I'm concerned about is that you'll leave and that I'll be without you, as opposed to that you're hurt.
Okay. And we see the sexual abuse again. Is that the same?
The sexual abuse, it can be more forceful. It can be more forceful. It doesn't have to be, but it can be more physically forceful.
Okay. And what do you mean by change in victim's personality?
When you go further across the continuum, what you see is that the victim can have a personality before they start. They can be friendly. They can be more self-confident. They can be even, gregarious. They can be the person that plans activities for the friends. And then over time, what happens is they become more withdrawn. They become less self-confident. They become more self-blaming. Their self-esteem goes down. So you see a real.
That's a good query, right? I know a couple where the man has actual OCD, like life-altering OCD. When he pisses his wife off, she puts things on different shelves in the kitchen. That's amazing. Yes, she's taunting him with his disease. How horrible of her. That's terrorism. That's violence towards him.
Yeah.
Change.
We had that.
Do that too.
Yeah. Now, I had this discussion the other day with the chat when we were talking about mental deficiencies, mental illness, and stuff like that. And as an example, how certain thing has been diluted as OCD. If you have OCD, actual OCD, everything in your life revolves around that OCD. It's not like, oh, I'm so OCD, I have to cut my grass twice a week. That's not OCD. Oh, I have to fold my clothes in a certain way. No, that's not OCD. OCD is, as you see in the Big Bang Theory, this knock, 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 penny, knock, 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 penny. Now multiply that with, you have to do everything in threes. You have to lock your door 3 times when you go out. You have to check your fridge 3 times before you go out. You have to check your stove 3 times before you go. I mean, that's OCD, not this, I'm so OCD. That's just, it pisses me off.
You can see somebody who's totally gregarious become withdrawn and isolated. You see, that kind of a change.
And timeline, and when we're talking about time, is this something that you're going to see in 2 months, or what kind of time are you talking about?
It really depends on what happens in the relationship. You can't just give that a timeline either, but it usually occurs over a period of time. I would say, I can't even say, I was trying to say, but I really can't say what that timeline is. But it doesn't, depending on what the other person does and depending on where the victim is when they get in the relationship and how vulnerable they are when they get in the relationship, they can be easier to intimidate and, change their personality. That can happen more quickly, but it takes a period of time for that to happen. And it takes a context for it to happen.
Okay, so is it more like there's no magic number again to be able to discuss timelines when you can expect to see certain things on this continuum?
No, there's no magic number that I've ever seen or known about or had anybody in the field talk about ever. A magic number with physical abuse or emotional abuse.
All right, and then at the end you say more generally violent.
And that's what I meant by that they can be violent in the outside. So there can be a lot of road rage that takes off the form of, pulling somebody off the freeway. It can be bar fights. It can be more violence that they're not so concerned about being public about.
Okay, that the perpetrator isn't concerned.
Right.
Okay, all right, and into the last column we see with terrorism. What do you mean by terrorism? There's battering. We have abuse, battering, and terrorism.
Well, as you go across the continuum, one of the reasons I took out patriarchal terrorism that Johnson had was in case we were dealing with female perpetrators that were doing some of these things, then we would be able to also look at female perpetrators as well. And gay lesbian relationships. In terrorism, as you move across the continuum, things just get more extreme. So you see usually more intensity in what's happening. And I have stalking up there. And when I'm talking about abuse and lower end battering, I talk about normal stalking. And people wonder what normal stalking is. But what I mean by normal stalking is when a relationship ends, most people aren't ready to have, there's usually one person who isn't ready to have it end. And that's for any of us. Most of us have had relationships where they ended before we were ready to have them end. We've had at least one. And you're not quite ready to have it end. So you might call the other person just to hear their little voice on the answer machine.
The camera immediately
you might drive by their, their house or something to see if they're there. You might show up somewhere where you think they are. And people who are domestically abusive or live in domestically abusive relationships don't believe each other.
Erin.
I don't, if I'm perpetrating domestic violence, I don't believe you're going to leave me, and you don't believe I'm going to stop hurting you. So there's a period of time where that person is used to pushing and getting what they want, and they push and they get what they want. So that's what happens. They continue to do that. So what I've seen, and most of us talk about, is that violating protective orders is very common in domestically abusive relationships because they don't believe that you really mean it. And so they're going to keep pushing to see if, that changes. And over time, once they know their partners mean business, that stalking behavior decreases. When you're dealing with a terrorist, once they know you mean business, the stalking increases if they're going to stalk. So they become more, sort of aggressive in their stalking behavior.
Okay. And
I don't believe it's completely irrelevant, but I believe it's directed at the wrong person. Like Jodi is calling this to trash Travis and say that she was abused, when in reality, I think it was she was the one doing the abuse.
Yeah. And we heard same in the when the Amber psychologist tried to blame everything on Johnny. You could just switch the names and everything fit Amber,
Mhm.
what she said.
Yeah. This is classic projection that
Yeah.
I see going on here.
The monopolization of perception. And actually, we had that on battering. I don't think we explained it. What is it?
The monopolization of perception is a precursor to the hostage syndrome, but
What does that mean?
Oh,
What?
this
Well,
is great.
okay, you said it's a
Listen to this
precursor to the
bullshit.
hostage syndrome.
well, I can kind of give an example of what it is.
Okay.
It's basically a situation where you stop having the ability to see the world through your eyes and you see it through the eyes of the person who has more power in the relationship. So, for instance, I was working with a couple, and I usually do a basic social interview with this, and I assess for levels of power difference, because levels of power difference are very important in domestically violent relationships. And so I ask who wants to come in first. I speak to each person separately so I can hear sort of the story and the new revised edition of the story. I want to know what's going on from both people's perspective.
She's already been qualified as an expert. She's trying to build the theory of all these things that go on. Basically, words are violent. Words can be terrorism. And now she's going to go into this thing where the smallest of little misunderstandings could be used by the perpetrator to manipulate you into keeping you almost like Stockholm syndrome and brainwash you. And that's what she's going into now.
Yeah. And for the record, Stockholm syndrome is not an actual syndrome. The idiot who invented that saying was a scam.
The person that it happened to, apparently,
No,
though.
the psychologist, the Swedish psychologist who minted the expression of Stockholm syndrome, he is a scam. He was
Right, but the person who was actually kidnapped in that scenario,
he never interviewed the women he diagnosed as having Stockholm syndrome.
but the woman is
Yeah.
apparently a family member of my wife's, like cousin or something, or like
Oh,
extended cousin.
oh, really?
Yeah,
Really?
I didn't,
Yeah.
yes.
Now
That's her claim to fame.
I watched that coverage several times, and yeah, the reason why the reason the hostages didn't want to leave was because they didn't trust the police, because the police on several occasions fired into the bank, risking their lives.
Yeah. Oh, play.
Yes.
There we go.
And he said, why don't you go in first? So she came in first. And I asked her some questions. I found out that there was a 20-year age gap between the two of them, and age is power. Age has power associated with it. And I found out that she had just gotten out of med school, and he had been a doctor for a while. So she had student loans, and he had money. Money is power. He was her first sexual experience. That's sexuality is power. And he was her supervisor in med school. So there are a lot of power differences in this couple. And I like to assess for isolation. And what I mean by that is a person's ability to function in the world with other people. And so I found out from her that her friends and family still lived in the area, and she'd gone to high school and college and med school in the same area. So I asked her if her and her partner had gotten together or got together with her friends, and she said no, that they didn't. He wasn't real comfortable with that. And I understood that because of the age difference. I thought that might be not a really fun thing to do. And I said, but what about you? Do you get together with your friends? And she said, well, he's not real comfortable with that either. And I said, well, what about your family? I know you've been close to your parents. Do you get together with your parents? And she said, well, he thinks my family's kind of intrusive and he doesn't want to spend a lot of time with them. And I said, well, what about you? I know you used to go to family dinners. Do you go to your family dinners on Sunday nights? And she said, well, he's not real comfortable with that either. And I said, well, how do you know he's not comfortable with that? And she said, well, when I come home, he won't talk to me. And I said, well, for how long? And she said, well, it used to be a few hours, but now it can drag on for days, and it's really uncomfortable. And I said, well, are there other things that would make you think he's uncomfortable? And she said, well, he asked me a lot of questions. And he asked her questions that wind up being like a full-blown interrogation. And so she pulls back and she stops seeing her family. She stops seeing her friends so much. And I said to her, does it make sense to you that somebody you love doesn't want you to spend time with other people that you love? And she said, it didn't used to make sense to me, but now I look at it through his eyes. So she began to see the world through his perspective and stop seeing it through her own. And that's what I mean by monopolization of perception.
Does that mean that she doesn't, that when people are seeing it through the perpetrator's eyes, does that mean that they tend to not blame the perpetrator for these actions? You know what I mean? Like, is she not getting angry with him for him not letting her go see her family and things like that because she's able to see it from a different perspective, from his perspective?
Well, she saw, in this particular case, she saw him as kind of insecure about the relationship. So she thought if she backed off and spent more time with him and gave him the things he wanted, that he would feel more secure and that they would have, then it would change. So she believed there would be a change created by this.
Okay. Okay. All right. And then we see insidious psychological abuse. What do you mean by that?
I mean, in psychological abuse, you can have more controlling behaviors. You can have things that are more subtle. You can have somebody who's putting somebody down in a really insidious way, but not directly necessarily. So you could have somebody, for instance, who you're talking about having just gotten a job, and you're really excited because you just got this job and you were hired on your first interview, and the person says, "Wow, they must be hiring anybody," and you say, "Well, that hurts my feelings. That's not what I meant. I mean, why would you say that to me?" And they say, "That's not what I meant. I meant you got hired so quickly. Of course, you're the best person for the job." That kind of thing. So they wind up shifting your perception a little at a time. So you start thinking, "Oh, I guess I misinterpreted that." So a lot of things like that. It's sort of mind control in a subtle way, which is actually how you do mind control. It's much more subtle.
Okay. And comments like that, like your example with the job, does that lead to the victim of the relationship, or the woman, whichever, does that lead to her ultimately thinking that, oh, it's the way I think? Whenever something goes wrong.
You mean, is she thinking?
This shift of perception.
Oh, the shift in perception. Okay, so what happens is you start seeing it differently and you start thinking, oh, maybe I misinterpreted it. So you start to doubt the way you see things. You start to doubt that your perception is accurate and that maybe you're misperceiving. You know, I didn't get what you meant. So you start doubting the way you look at things.
Okay. Okay.
Is anyone buying this?
Yeah. So the person who didn't understand, that's the other person's fault.
Yeah, right. So I'm saying, like, all of this is nonsense. This is all the building blocks of words are violent. Words are used to control you. Believe all women. And even if you are, doing something, but you're not physically forced into it.
Yeah.
But you feel like you have pressure on you to do it, then that's abuse and terrorism and all kinds of nonsense, right?
Yeah.
This is where it came from.
Yeah. And here's the thing. If a person comes to you, a client or whatever, and says they are being abused. Okay. First instinct, I believe them. Now, okay, let's gather evidence. Then my perception might change. But if a person, a client or whatever, shows up at in my office or calls me or calls the office and is handed over to me and say, I'm being abused at my workplace. Okay, I believe you. Now let's see but that doesn't mean I shouldn't gather evidence to actually prove it in a negotiation. So
right.
It seems like this psychologist, Alice Laviolette, she kind of skips the evidentiary part.
Yes. Yeah, she this is I don't even know what else to say. Back when would we be believe this? Well, obviously the jury didn't, right? So the jury didn't believe this. But much like cases we're seeing, or particularly Jennifer Crumbley, right? Even if the jury had acquitted, it still establishes a groundwork where other people could say, like, oh, well, it didn't work there, but I'm going to start using it to my advantage and start looking into this because this is interesting. If words are violence,
and
that's going to be quoted.
After this trial, and it has been going on since, there are a good chunk of people who actually think she's innocent, that she was abused, raped, everything. And
it's like people like Salvador.
And the well thought out threat to kill. What do you mean by that?
Well, someone who's battering may threaten to kill you or harm you in some way, but the person, or suicide, that's another threat that's very potent in relationship.
Well, hold on a second. So wait a minute. So we have a well thought out threat to kill. So do you mean that it can be a threat to kill themselves?
It can be a threat to kill themselves too.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about
But
that.
the battering would be less well thought out. It would be more like, I'm telling you, I'm going to kill myself. I'm telling you, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to hurt somebody you love, something like that. The well thought out, I'm going to tell you how I'm going to do it, or I'm going to be more specific with that.
Okay. And how is that terrorism?
course,
I mean, when
Amy,
they're talking about killing
emotional
themselves, not
abuse
killing the other
exists.
person, how does that relate to abuse and terrorism?
This woman,
If you're with somebody you love and they threaten to kill
No.
themselves, it is terrorizing to people who love you.
So it's terrorizing if you threaten to unalive yourself. It's terrorizing if you threaten to do things. That's where the words are terror, people. Words
Yeah.
are terror.
An example, when I, back in school, when I went 14, 15, one of my classmates, his girlfriend broke up with him. And he said, I'm going to end myself. And we are breaking up. And then as a scare, he took some pills and some alcohol. And yeah, he succeeded. She was destroyed for years. So in this case, yeah, that was abusive. But that was teenagers. And he did it by mistake. He wasn't actually planning to do it. He was just going to scare. So yeah, emotional abuse exists. But I don't think it is in this. She is making these extreme examples and then try to apply it to ordinary situations.
Yeah.
And you can't. You can't do that.
And it's funny to try to tie it into Jodi and say how
Yeah.
somehow her unaliving of Travis was justified in
Yeah.
self-defense. That's what, remember, ultimately her claim is self-defense. Is any of this working for y'all on the self-defense? Even if we believe this woman's nonsense, is this going to justify unaliving somebody? Imagine the power behind words if mere words could get you off on a murder charge. Well, he said he called me a name.
It's terrorizing to anybody in that family. It's terrorizing to children in that family. It's when you talk to families where the threats of suicide, it can control the entire family because they're so worried that could happen. And I think it's something, I see when I work with parents and they have teenagers and the teenager is acting strange and they're afraid that the teenager is going to hurt themselves and the teenager hasn't even threatened it. But because a parent believes it could happen, they are terrorized by that.
All right. And you said it controls the family. How does it control the family?
Because your focus shifts from everybody else to the person who's suicidal or that you believe is suicidal or that you believe is homicidal. In a family where there's domestic violence, the focus is more often on the perpetrator from everybody in the family because you have to be careful of that person. So your focus is much more on that person. The old saying, you oil the squeaky wheel. And I think that's sort of what happens.
Okay. All right. And you talk about torturing pets. Is that something you see?
I've seen that. I haven't seen that much, partially because I think people who do things to animals are reluctant to talk about them. So there are many things that are not talked about. I actually had a young man who was a very bright graduate student at UCLA, very handsome, very just charismatic guy who came into group one night and he was crying and he said, I kicked my puppy to death. And it was horrible. And it was horrible for all of us. And he admitted to it because he said, I need help. I have to have help. But it's very hard to talk about hurting children and about hurting or doing anything that you think is would be considered strange. So, any kind of strange psychological abuse or that sort of thing, it's hard for people to talk about that in group.
Bingo card on this testimony would have been interesting.
Yes. Yes, it would have.
Talk to you about it afterwards.
I should have thought about that.
They might talk to you about it during an intake session, or they might wait to know you. I'm working with a young man right now who said, Alice, I know some things that are causing me problems, but I'm not going to tell you because I don't know you right now. And I said, that's fine. I don't expect you to tell me things until you have some reason to trust me.
All right. Let's see. And then we have extreme isolation.
Isolation allows somebody to do mind control. And isolation can take a lot of forms. Isolation doesn't have to be as obvious as you never get to see anybody that you care about.
Bob
Isolation
Newhart's
can be
sister.
that you're not talking
Her
to
head
anybody
is
about what's
weird in
going
the
on
back, isn't it?
in your life. And that's common in domestically violent relationships, that people don't talk to other people. They don't talk to their friends. They don't talk to their family about what's going on, because they want people to like their partner. They want people to care about them. They want people to hang around with. They don't want anybody to think they have lousy taste. They care about that. So they tend to keep it to them.
So she's been qualified as an expert, and an expert is allowed to use treatises, hypotheticals, other stories, other bits of information in order to explain the opinion that she came to with regard to this particular case. We haven't even gotten to her opinion on Jodi Arias. We're just talking about all the information she used to form the basis of the knowledge that she has, that she's then going to apply to Jodi and then testify about that. So we're just at like the foundational stuff.
Yeah, and she might go on for a while with this.
Yeah, we're gonna. That's why I started watching ahead, and I was like, we could
Yeah.
skip some of this, and I could kind of summarize it.
Mm.
But I'll confer with Nick, and we'll see what we want to do with this going forward, because it's good. It's a lot of this. We're only into 1 hour into day 37. She's been on the stand for an hour and a half, roughly.
Yeah.
So
thank you all who super chatted, so we could move ahead a bit.
yes, if you want to
Thank
super
you
chat,
so-
and we could skip ahead.
Yeah. And remember, go between channels, give the thumbs up and everything. And my audience, if you haven't subscribed to Dave yet, it's too late. And Dave's audience, who want a constant streamer, here I am.
One that doesn't flake out and decide that he's not streaming anymore, but yet streams sometimes.
Yeah. We will always have Jodi.
We'll always have Jodi. Well, I've been thinking about this, and I might do a stream where I talk about my future plans. But because I have some ideas, I have some plans. I want to keep streaming. I've got to figure out a way to make it work. And I've been talking in Discord with various people and talking about different things. So I will be coming back, but we'll see how it works.
Themselves. That's a form of
Go
isolation.
sub to Nick.
Looking at what people write and telling them they can't write certain things or that they can't say certain things is a form of isolation. And then there are real obvious forms like taking the spark plug. I don't even know if cars have spark plugs anymore, actually, but dismantling.
2013. I don't know if cars have spark plugs.
The car so that somebody can't use the car. Or taking the keys away. Or there are lots of ways to isolate people.
So can a person be isolated in, what I'm hearing you say is that a person can be isolated even though it's not necessarily an extreme situation like dismantling the car?
Yes.
And when can a person be isolated just because they have no one else to talk to about what happens?
That's really the main reason they are isolated, because they stop talking to anybody else. And so the ability to put things in perspective becomes lost in that relationship. So whether you're male or female, if you're in a situation and you can't talk to anyone else, then the reality of the person you're with, that whatever they tell you becomes more real because you don't have another mirror to look into. So I've had, for instance, I had 2 women come into the shelter in the same week who both believed that they were ugly and overweight, and they were both very thin and attractive. And they believed that because they had been told that so often, and they were pretty isolated. So you can believe what the person tells you more easily if you're isolated.
Can you tell the difference though when a woman chooses to not tell other people, like if she has family and she just doesn't tell them what's going on, or she has friends and she just chooses not to tell them? Is there a choice in the matter where she's choosing to isolate herself, or is that part of a psychological or something that happens in an abusive relationship where it's not really her choice?
Well, I don't think that a victim of domestic violence feels that they have a choice. Okay. I think that what happens is your choices get narrowed, your world gets narrowed. That your choices about how you handle things get narrower because you're concerned. You know, I see over and over again that people I'm with are very concerned about the reputation of the partner that they have. They're concerned about, if it's a school teacher, they're concerned about that school teacher losing their job if anybody finds out. They're worried about a reputation that somebody has. I always remember a woman who called anonymously on the hotline, and she was married to a minister who was local. apparently, and I don't know who it was. I never knew who it was, but she called the hotline and said, nobody will believe
Just
me.
take Jung.
And
She'll
I
show you
can't ruin his
around.
reputation. He's very good with people in the church. So I don't want to ruin his reputation. And I hear that over and over again, even people who own their own businesses. They don't want them to lose work. Police officers, people in the military. There's a lot of concern
Nothing
from
with
victims across the
Jodi is
board
narrow.
that the person they're with is going to have a marred
All
reputation
wide.
or lose their
All
career
hallways
behind,
with Jodi.
where they're standing.
And so does that factor into the feeling of a victim feeling like she doesn't have a choice to talk to other people?
Yes,
Even if you choose not to make a choice, right? Or even if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. Rush, anybody? No? Okay.
Yeah, here's the thing. She lived a state away. She had a new boyfriend lined up, and she still felt the need to go to Travis, have the boinky boinky one more time, and then stabby stabby shooty shooty.
Right? Exactly. Yeah, none of this is working for me.
it absolutely factors in. Yeah.
And you talked a little bit about balance of power, and I know in the first two columns we see that there is a balance of power in the relationship, and then that seems to disappear, starting with abuse. What is the importance of that?
Well, the balance of power means that there's, pretty much positive regard for each other, that we like each other, that I value your opinion in my relationship. I want to hear what you have to say about it. When we, buy things, we kind of talk about them unless they're your things, but that, we value, we make decisions. If we have children, we talk about how we're going to discipline them, or we try to work together or try to figure out a way to do that, even if we aren't sure how to do it. But when you look at a shift, you begin to see that the person who perpetrates has more power because the other person has given up so much of who they are that they lose the ability to have that balance of power. And I don't think it's always thought out. I don't think people necessarily who are perpetrating domestic violence are consciously saying, I'm going to take your power away. I'm going to, I don't think they're just necessarily doing that at all. I think they're more reflexive. I think it's more an emotional reflex that they're, for them, it feels more like survival. How am I going to survive? And they act out. The ones that are terrorists and high-end battering, they're more thoughtful about what they do.
Okay. The last thing we had on there, not last actually, the generally more regular physical abuse, but may occur without physical.
Right. So, you can have a terrorist who never lays a hand on anybody. And I worked on a murder case in the late 90s, a woman who was had been very financially.
Did you catch that? You can have a terrorist who never lays a hand on anybody.
Successful. And the way her family started to notice that things were not right was that she went to them and started asking to borrow money. She was pregnant. Her partner wouldn't go to appointments with her. And when she thought she was having contractions, wouldn't go to the doctor with her. When they went out with other people, there was an occasion where he kicked the side of a car in front of her and in front of the other people.
Oh, we have several days of this woman's face.
He got furious. There was an occasion where he chased a guy on a bike and beat him up in front of this person who's a rugby player. When she separated from him, they had a child at that time.
I know, I was trying to watch ahead to see when she actually started talking about Jodi. And like I said, I listened to about an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes of this woman's testimony, and we still weren't to Jodi. So I was going to summarize it. Then Nick decided he wanted to go back to the beginning. So we went back to the beginning.
I said I at least wanted to watch the first 20 minutes.
We're basically up to where I was going to start from today. So we'll just keep going. I haven't listened to any more of it. I don't know when she starts talking about Jodi.
Separated, she went and moved in with her parents. Her father and mother were in their 70s. And he began to call the Department of Children and Family Services and make anonymous phone calls that there was child abuse. And so social workers would come out to investigate. They were never substantiated, but there were so many calls that they came out one night and were going to remove the child from the home because of these threats. And the social worker was the one who said to this family,
when I do recap,
this is a battered relationship. They had no idea because they watch television and they know that if you're battered,
I go directly to the cross-examination because the important stuff will be brought up by the defense.
All right, I'll do a poll. Should we skip the cross?
Making threats, calling and leaving messages.
I will do the same.
Nightmare. And then when he had custody of his little boy, he would take him to the hospital and force them to, say that something was wrong and force them to.
Well, Nurmi is,
confess on
or
this
not
little
Nurmi,
child. And so
what's
the
his name
father,
is the prosecutor. He's awesome.
her father, who had been a prisoner of war during World War II,
All right, new poll is up.
developed post-traumatic stress, and he was also told by the
It's up at my
doctor
place
that
too.
if he didn't do something,
The thing is
then
I don't
his
know
wife was gonna have
where
a heart attack
cross
and die.
starts.
and he wound up
I'll have to
emptying a
look
gun
here.
into this man.
Oh, it
And he
doesn't
said,
start
"I'm
with
giving
today.
my life
That's for sure.
for my daughter." But he was in a fugue when he did it. But he was.
By the way, everyone go thank
his
Veal
neighbors, he
Hammer
did it
by
in his
giving him a
neighborhood.
sub for this.
And he walked down the street.
Wonderful
and
video.
Go
somebody
and
they'd known him
subscribe
for
to
25
Veal Hammer
years
Media.
Looked at him and said,
So he
said
can
his life
start
was
earning
over.
money
He
for
didn't know
all
what he
his
was doing. He just
magic
walked down
work.
the street and he didn't know what he was doing. He was
And
so terrified about what was happening that
I don't know how
you know,
people
he
didn't
just-
think that
he-
this was
he
boring
reacted.
the shit out
So
of the
that's
jury.
something where somebody was terrorizing someone else
And-
without any physical abuse.
And here's the
no,
thing:
no physical abuse in that case.
any male in the jury
You also
will
have
see
sexual
some of this.
humiliation and
Hold on
degradation.
here. I'm
What-
not abusing my
What do you
wife.
see with that?
And women in the
Sexual
jury will
humiliation
think,
is where you're
I'm not
having people do
abused. Why
things
are she
that they
talking
might go
about
along
things
with,
me
but
and my husband
lowers their
does?
self-esteem. And it can be any kind of thing that's humiliating or degrading to someone in a sexual way, or using sex as a way to control. So it could be anything. It could be something that the other person is
If you want to
comfortable
be
with, that they're
really
along
sure,
with.
jump
It could be forcing
between
somebody to
streams
be
and
sexual,
vote on
and
both
there are
channels.
strange things that happen in that area. We're less
This
likely
is
to get
interesting.
information on that area because
Okay, so on day 38, at about, that's a short day. It's only 2 hours. They have another woman that jumps on the stand. So I don't know
Okay.
if they have some sort of evidentiary issue or what, but
Maybe.
there is no cross.
There
Wait,
is no.
Ian. Wait, do we start? Oh, okay. So we can skip to the next witness if we want to. We can skip to the next witness, and then this woman's back on the stand for more direct. So they skip a witness for some reason. So, but yeah.
Yeah, they do that
We won't
sometimes.
actually
if
skip
it-
the cross. We would
yeah.
skip to the next
Yeah.
witness.
Yeah, but what happens sometimes, a specific witness have a specific time slot. And sometimes, because this dragged on, I mean, the 200 jury questions, they weren't expecting that. So they snuck in a witness in between who probably could only testify that day, that time.
Yeah. I think that's what they did.
Mm.
So we have...
I have 92% yes to
Okay.
skip to cross-examination, or in this case, skip to the next witness.
All right. So what we can do is we can... I have 81% yes. All right. The votes win. Okay.
Yeah.
What we're gonna do
Okay.
is
Yeah.
let's do this.
Yeah. That is one of the most decisive polls I've ever had on my channel.
That's pretty good. And you know that one person that voted to not skip was Brandon just being a dick. All right. So this is towards the end of day 38. She's still on the stand, but she and this might actually carry us through for the rest of the stream. They do a sidebar, they have a bunch of arguments, and then they put someone else on the stand. So let's try to see who we know this person to be. Oh, look at that, Josie with the $4.99 super chats. It says skip. All right, we'll take it. We skipped the whole witness for that $4.99.
yes, it is.
So this is probably the time.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, next week, would any of you be unavailable to start at 9:30 each day? Anyone who could not start at 9:30? Again, there's no court this afternoon, no court on Monday. Tuesday, you need to be back here at 9:30. At this time, I would like you to go back to the jury room. We are going to be speaking with you individually, but please go back to the jury room. Remember the admonition. We're at recess.
Hey, thank you very much for the $5 super chat.
Counsel for the state, posing with a woman who poses on HLN as one of Dr. Drew's jurors. I believe her name is Miss Witt. There has been video online of Mr. Martinez outside the courtroom, signing autographs and posing for pictures. I do not have that video to provide the court today. I will do so next week. That was found in the Arizona Republic. I believe that this misconduct may very well have been seen by jurors. I didn't have any evidence to that effect until last night.
That's why they interrupted this woman's testimony, because the prosecutorial misconduct, signing autographs and giving statements outside the courtroom.
Working for HLN, went on and said that she observed a juror seeing Mr. Martinez's fan club and whatever you want to call it. In that regard, I'm asking this court, because she was present in the courtroom today, that Ms. Cazares be called forward to give testimony as to what she observed and which juror she saw watching these events.
Mr. Martinez?
What happens outside the courtroom is not misconduct. Defense counsel may not like the fact that people have come up to the prosecutor and asked him whatever it is that they asked him and whether or not they wanted to have a photograph with him. That is not misconduct. If defense counsel believes that there was a juror that was there that saw it, even if that were the case, that still would not be prosecutorial misconduct. Because
he's jealous he didn't get asked.
The remedy in this case is to identify the juror, whoever that may be, to see if in fact that is true. Because as we know, sometimes facts are not quite what they seem or are the way they are reported. And once we ascertain what that issue is, the course is to then ask the jurors whether or not they actually saw it, and whatever it is that they saw, whether or not that would affect their ability to be fair and impartial. To characterize something that happens outside of court, such as taking a photograph, is not misconduct. But I have no objection to calling a witness and asking whatever questions might be relevant to the defendant.
Misconduct, certainly, Your Honor, and the rules tell us that misconduct is certainly not limited to the courtroom. Lawyers cannot go out and give extrajudicial statements. I can't go out and hold a press conference. And what Mr. Martinez did outside is really akin to that. We have a person who I believe is a lawyer, is officer of the court. I don't believe this is First Amendment privilege, who observed these things. And certainly there might be jurors who might not want to be so forthcoming. So I believe that the best course of action is to hold this evidentiary hearing. I will submit the video at issue next week and call Ms. Cazares for her observations. And then once we do that, because we have clear evidence that this took outside the courthouse, regardless of what she has to say, that we speak with each one of the jurors individually to see if they observed anything, because there could have been more jurors than what was observed. Having watched having seen the picture, it's obvious that it's right in front of the courthouse. Having seen the video, it was obviously at least a few minutes. There were several individuals interviewed about how great he is, and that sort of thing. So it's entirely possible that more than one juror saw this. I don't know how many days, a week this goes on, because I'm not privy to that. But the misconduct does not end at the courthouse walls. And like I said, I believe an evidentiary hearing is warranted with Ms. Cazares as a witness.
Ms. Cazares, are you present in the courtroom? Please come forward.
If the information about the prosecution's relationship with a blogger.
Right.
Yeah.
When people are asking for the prosecutor's
Good morning.
autographs and pictures.
You had an opportunity to hear Mr. Nurmi. He would like an opportunity to question you under oath regarding what you observed. Are you comfortable proceeding with that at this time?
I missed that. There you go. Good to see you, Dave. Hi, Nicholas. All right.
Yeah.
Let's go to see you.
Thank you so much.
5-minute rewind.
Time? Yes. All right.
The rewind is doubled, sir. So if you want to rewind, you get 2.5 minutes. And we should put a cap on that. Like, you have to do a minimum like $50 for us to rewind.
Yeah. And that only gets you 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And you can only do it once per stream. On each channel. Just in case.
The prosecutor, okay, well, I'll just recap for you, Brandon. The prosecutor apparently has a fan club outside the courtroom that he was signing autographs and taking pictures with. And apparently one of the jurors stumbled across this and saw it. And so now this is going to be testimony from another attorney who witnessed this whole thing. And then they're going to go question the jurors individually.
Yeah, and this was one of the things that was frowned upon by the appellate court. Him giving interviews, and I mean, he did a lot of crap outside of the courtroom.
Yes. That,
It
yeah,
depends.
and he failed to put this in his book.
Will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, thank you.
Please walk right around here and have a seat.
No skipping. We're not skipping right now. Yeah, actually, let's take the banner down. We're not skipping.
Jeremy?
Thank you, Your Honor.
The skipping
Morning.
is only for
Mr. Soares, is that, am I saying it right?
psychologist.
Yes.
Jean Casares,
Okay,
yes.
thank you, Mr. Soares. For whom are you employed?
I am an attorney and I'm a legal correspondent for Turner Broadcasting, which is in session, and I do work on HLN and CNN.
And as part of your duties for HLN and CNN, as a correspondent, have you been covering the proceedings against Ms. Arias?
Yes, I have.
And when did you begin your work on this case? In terms of the trial, I should say.
I came here, I think, 2 weeks after the trial started, 1 or 2 weeks,
Okay. And have you been here on a daily basis or near daily basis?
daily basis.
Okay. As part of your commentary then on these networks, I suspect it is your desire to be as truthful and forthcoming as possible. Is that accurate?
Of course.
Okay. And as it relates to your observations during the trial, you've also been paying attention to the jurors, correct?
I look at them, yes.
Okay. You recognize them?
Not all of them, but the ones that I can see.
Okay. And as a matter of fact, you are one of the reporters that uses the vans
Nope.
or mobile, I'm sure you have a name for one, the
Mobile
mobile studios?
studios,
Okay.
yes.
And you're involved in that, that's about a block from the courthouse, is that
was
correct?
a blogger.
How do you gain access and egress to the courthouse?
Through the front door.
Okay, you go through the main door that everybody else does, okay. Now, in your true and accurate reporting that you did, you were on either HLN or CNN or perhaps others I didn't see last night, correct?
Yes, with the time difference, it might be the afternoon here, but yes, I'm on
Okay.
a lot of shows.
Okay. And in one of those reports, you reported that you made observations of a juror seeing Mr. Martinez outside the courtroom, right?
I did not. If I could explain, I will tell you the question posed to me and my answer that I gave.
Okay.
They were doing a segment on Mr. Martinez and the public wanting to shake his hand, wanting autographs, wanting pictures. And so I was asked as a correspondent and as an attorney, I believe, my thoughts on that. And I said that I see the video. And I said, I have seen a juror just sitting outside the front door of the courthouse. I've seen him walk through the front doors. To me, jurors are sacred, but I can look because I have eyes.
Fair enough.
And I said, my concern would be if a juror would see that. That would be my concern.
And based on you're telling us that you didn't observe any jurors seeing that?
No, but I have seen at least one juror outside and I saw the video. I did not witness the video of Mr. Martinez with my own eyes, but I just said that because many people were saying it was great and it was wonderful. And my thought was, legally speaking, my concern would be if a juror would see that.
Okay. Approach.
You may.
Okay, so she didn't really actually observe a juror see this happen,
That's
but you
exhibit
can,
number one.
But
You
she
can
did
do-
see,
You recognize the woman?
but she did see a juror sitting out there.
yeah,
but doesn't
but
know
not
if
in
the juror
relationship
actually-
to, yeah.
Yeah.
She can't speak to if the juror actually saw it. She only knows that a juror sits outside where on some occasion Mr. Martinez is meeting his fans. So
It's-
In exhibit
Fans are
number
like
one
that.
with Mr. Martinez?
Yes, I do. I don't know her. I recognize her.
Okay. She works for your network, doesn't she?
I don't believe so, but that's not my job to know who works for the network and who doesn't.
Okay. And in the photograph, do you see Mr. Martinez and this young lady?
Yes.
These
Okay, that might be the
instances of
young
Mr.
lady
Martinez
he's seen
and
with.
the people desiring to shake his hand
that
or what
might
have
be the
you,
one.
is that something you saw once or more than once?
I never saw it personally.
You never saw
I
it
saw
personally?
a
You were-
video on the air. I never personally saw it.
Okay. So what you saw was what was online, what was posted online? Is that what you're just?
On
Just-
HLN, when they were doing a segment and they showed some video and then asked me a question.
Okay. So you were commenting on the video, not your personal observations.
Correct.
That's all the questions I have.
In terms of the prosecutor walking out in front, through the front doors, what we call the north doors, how many times have you seen him walk out the front doors?
Prosecutors, never. I've never seen him walk out the front doors.
And other than this one indication that he may have walked out of the doors one time and people came up to him, is there any other video that you are aware
talking
of
about
where the
himself in
prosecutor
the
may have
third
walked out of those
person?
doors?
No, I don't keep track of video.
I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Can you redirect?
What a dude.
You just said you don't keep track of video.
Well, that's not my job.
Okay, well, I'm not attacking you for that. I'm just wondering, apart from the video that you were shown, you said you were shown a video and then you commentate on it yesterday. Have you seen any other videos of this taking place?
Not that I can remember, no.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You may step down.
Yeah, Mr. Normie
Counsel
thought
Coach.
this was way more serious.
Yeah,
But
well,
it-
I
yeah.
would have too. I don't
Yeah.
blame him for bringing this attention.
Yeah.
The court's attention.
Yeah. But we do know from other reports later on that he did this on quite a few occasions. And I'm wondering that young lady he was seen with is if that was the blogger, because there was bloggers back then. That was huge back then, blogging. If you remember this, you young people watching. And there were quite a few covering this trial, and one of them, Mr. Martinez had a relationship with and shared information with that she then posted on her blog.
Who's the bubblegum blonde that they keep painting to? I didn't see that. Oh, I don't know. I see that now. I just looked back on the feed. I don't know who that is. Maybe a reporter. Maybe the one that was pictured.
Let's bring the jury.
Yeah,
She's
that
cute.
didn't go
He
anywhere.
loses all license for her.
Did you see that? What she did with the paper? But just waste my time.
All right, what are we doing here? The juror's been sent home.
Okay. Now we're back to. Oh, that's. No, that's not her.
Okay, so what day are we on now? We're watching day 38.
Ms. LaViolette, please come forward and take a seat on the stand.
Oh,
Okay. Elise put us $10 forward, and Brandon 2.5 minutes back. So 7.5 minutes forward, I guess.
7.5 minutes forward. That brings us to the end.
Oh.
While we're just sort of killing time, while I'm looking, I'm going to keep playing this. This is on. All right, I got to pull up day 39. Wait, what happened? Oh, okay.
Yep.
Sorry,
And
that was the end of it.
Yeah, and Jonathan, I can't bring it up because it's a bit, but yeah, you could hold a candle under her, and she would be filled with hot air and fly away.
Everyone needs to go subscribe to VO Hammer Media, by the way. His link is in the description, and this is his awesome logo and sound, and he's remastered all of these. Oh my God, I'm on day 40, and she's still on direct. Hang on. Let me find where cross starts. Day 41. Oh, I think day 41 cross starts. Okay, let me get up to this. Let's see here. I love Angry Little Elf.
Yeah, now I really want him to be Angry Elf.
Yeah. All right. Let's pull up day 40. We just jumped up to day 41, Nick.
What?
I didn't realize so much of this was this sort of nonsense.
That's like
expert witness kind
4
of
or 5 episodes we just skipped.
I know.
That's not good.
No, but we also don't want to watch this woman's direct for 4 days. We were on day 37.
And we jumped to day 41.
And we jumped to day 41.
She was on the stand for 5 days.
That's ridiculous. We're not even to the cross yet. Hang on.
Where's the sound?
Oh. I was just making sure.
And did you ever see any evidence at all of jealousy from Jodi to Mr. Alexander?
No, I didn't.
Right, I've never seen it. Thank you.
That was a
did
great
not
way to
see
end this.
any-
mess.
Cross
She
examination.
did not see any evidence of jealousy from Jodi towards Mr.
Oh, all right. You all voted for this. We are going into the Angry Elves cross-examination. He's like,
Yeah,
"Give me
one of the
that."
things that you told us earlier was that you have a bachelor's degree, correct?
No, I have a master's degree.
Well, before that, you had to have a bachelor's degree, correct?
Yes, I did.
What year did you get your bachelor's degree?
1969.
And then after that, you did get a master's degree, right?
Yes, I did.
And what year was that?
1980.
So there was a span of time between the bachelor's and the master's degree, correct?
Yes, there was.
And ma'am, one of the things that you didn't tell us was that after the master's degree, you did not continue in your studies, did you?
I'm not sure what you mean.
You did not obtain a PhD, did you?
No, but I continued in studies.
So is it true that you did obtain a PhD then?
No, I continued in my studies. I took classes and I take CEUs every year.
So the answer is no, you do not have a PhD, correct?
No, I don't have a PhD.
And since you don't have a PhD, ma'am, there are certain restrictions that are placed on you that are not placed on an individual with a PhD, correct?
Yes,
For example, you cannot administer any tests, correct?
I don't administer tests.
The answer is no then, correct?
Yes,
And the other thing that you can't do is you can't read any psychological test either, correct?
I can't read any
In
psychological
other
tests.
words, you may have some training in what you do, but in terms of looking at a psychological test, you may have some idea, but you have to rely on others that have more schooling and training than you to be able to tell you what the results are of a particular test,
I
right?
would tell you that we have different training. And in terms of psychological tests, I would not be doing psychological tests. In terms of other things, I might have more training than someone with a PhD.
I'm not asking about other areas. I'm talking about psychological tests. Do we understand each other?
We definitely understand each other.
With regard to the psychological testing, it's true that
Do you
you
feel
do not have the
abused?
expertise to be able to.
Nick, do we
Mr.
understand
Expert?
each other? Do we have an
Yeah.
understanding, Nick?
Yeah, sure.
I love that. He's
Yeah.
so angry.
I mean, if he could imagine if he could limit himself to this personality when it comes to garbage testimony like she just made,
I
that
know.
would be amazing. But
Engage, if you will, in the reading of tests, correct?
Correct,
And you can't score tests, correct?
correct.
And in fact, you're aware of what is known as the DSM-4, right?
Yes, I am.
It's the diagnostic and statistical manual that psychologists and sometimes psychiatrists use in diagnosing individuals, correct?
Actually, that's not correct.
There is no such book as a DSM-4?
Psychotherapists also use that book, and I am a psychotherapist, Mr. Martinez.
So you do use that book then, right?
I've used that book.
And with regard to this particular case, isn't it true that in that book that you say that you use and that you are familiar with, isn't it true that in that book, there is no diagnosis of battered woman, right?
True.
There is no indication or any diagnosis of an abused woman either, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
the sidebar.
Another sidebar. There's going to be a lot of sidebars. As I was skipping through the last 4 days of
Isn't it true
testimony,
that it does not have
there was so much sidebars.
Okay, Mr. Jingles.
May
Yeah,
continue.
oh,
Overruled.
I
with
have
regard to the
cats that's
DSM-4,
on
isn't it true that it does not have a diagnosis of quote-unquote battered woman, right?
True.
And now, what we really have in this particular field is what you do, correct? You have somebody who has experience, right?
Well, I want to hear what you're talking about. What,
Do
can you
you
tell
or do you
me?
not have experience in dealing with what you allege to be battered women?
I do.
And with regard to that experience and making a determination whether or not an individual is a battered woman, basically what you have available to you are clinical interviews, right?
That's one thing that we have available.
Right, and basically a clinical interview is you sitting across from the person that may or may not be a victim of battering and talking to them, right?
That's one of the things I use.
Right, that's what you do, right?
That's one of the
your-
things I do.
That's one of your,
Wouldn't it be amazing if this woman popped up as Sarah Boone's expert? Wouldn't that be amazing?
main
If that
instruments, if you will,
is the-
in trying to.
Alice Lavoyette, I need to see if she's still around.
Yes. See if she's still alive. And then, like, send Sarah Boone a letter with just the name. maybe a link to one of her videos or something.
To determine whether or not the situation.
It is
involved.
not my main instrument, Mr. Martinez.
Is it one of the items that you use?
It is one of the things that I use, correct?
And in this particular case, you told us that what, you spent what, 40 hours talking to the defendant?
44.
44 hours, so that's the clinical interview aspect of it, correct?
I used that as that is the clinical interview that I did, right?
Yes or no? That is the clinical aspect of your practice, correct?
It is a clinical aspect of my practice.
And in this case, the 44 hours, that's the clinical aspect of this evaluation, right?
I'm not sure what you mean by the clinical aspect.
Well, a clinical interview, as you know what a clinical interview is, right?
Of course I know what a clinical
All
interview
right,
is.
then we seem to be having problems with it. With regard to a clinical interview, man, isn't that a situation where you
Love
sit
it.
across from an individual and you talk to them about the issue that is at hand? Isn't that true?
You interview them, you ask
Yeah, she's
questions.
still alive
you're an assessor.
and
So when you're interviewing, you're not talking then, right?
Is she still,
still working, pushing her
Nice.
theories about men's abuse towards women,
Boone
specifically,
needs to
and
get
that
this woman.
alone.
Sarah Boone needs to get this woman. It's going to be a disaster, and she's still going to be found guilty, but it'll be highly entertaining to watch her again.
Mr. Martinez,
Yes or no? My question is, are you talking yes or no?
Mr. Martinez, are you angry at me?
Ma'am, is that relevant to you? Is that important to you?
Ladies and gentlemen, please refrain from laughing in the courtroom.
Is that important to you?
Wait. Without Brandon Ping, we're going to back this up. I want to do this in like real time.
Yeah.
The courtroom is laughing.
About the
Yeah.
issue that is at hand, isn't that true?
You interview them, you ask questions, you do an assessment.
So when you are interviewing, you're not talking then, right?
Mr. Martinez,
Yes or no? My question is, are you talking yes or no?
Mr. Martinez, are you angry at me?
Ma'am, is that relevant to you? Is that important to you?
Ladies and gentlemen, please refrain from laughing in the courtroom.
Is that important to you whether or not the prosecutor is angry to you with regard to your evaluation? Does that make any difference to your evaluation whether or not the prosecutor is angry? Yes or no?
It makes a difference to me the way I'm spoken to, and I would like you to speak to me the way I speak to you.
Ma'am, is it true that just because the
Wow.
prosecutor is angry at you, is that going to make you change your answer with regard to whether or not this is a battering situation?
No, certainly
then,
not.
The fact that the prosecutor may or may not, or you may perceive him as being angry, that really has nothing to do with your evaluation, does it?
No, but it certainly is.
Yes or no? Does it have anything to do with your evaluation? And judge, say yes or
Answering
no.
the
answer.
witness.
She's trying to answer the question. Some of these questions cannot be answered by yes or no.
Ms. LaViolette, can you answer that question, yes or no?
I'm not sure at this point what the question is, because when someone is approaching in that way, it's very hard to listen.
All right. Restate your question.
Just because somebody has a demeanor
He's terrorizing
that you
her.
perceive to be angry, is that going to sway your opinion as to what you think in this case?
Wow.
Clinical interview.
Shazbak, I just made a connection here. She's saying this whole time that words are violence, right? And so now he's getting into the whole like, well, you're thinking I'm angry at you. Is that going to change your answer? That's not bad. You know,
Yeah.
like if you think I'm angry at you and that's going to change your diagnosis, or you perceiving me being one way when I'm really not, that's a great way to minimize her all of her BS that she talked about for 4 days. He's definitely abusing her in her own mind. Yeah, that's kind of the
Talking
point.
about you doing is speaking to the defendant across the table about the issues in this case, right?
Yes.
And that's the interview, speaking with each other.
Sorry.
Not from the defendant, not about the journals. You were sort of left to just read what somebody else had written about an interview with a collateral source, right?
On those particular
Yes.
collateral sources, on the
Yes.
interview parts, certainly, not on the IMs and the
I'm
text.
talking about the collateral sources
Can you
that
speed this up?
actually somebody wrote down a synopsis, right?
Yes,
And one of the things that we know with regard to your particular approach is that since there is no diagnosis in the DSM-4, there really is no, if you will, guide out there to tell you when somebody is really a battered individual or if somebody is an abused individual, right?
that's not correct.
Well, what we actually have then is, let's take exhibit number 558. Isn't this what you used to tell us?
That was an example.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Isn't
apologize.
this true, exhibit 558? Isn't that what you ended your testimony with, talking about this particular continuum of aggression and abuse to tell us that the defendant, in your opinion, was the victim of abuse, right?
That was not the only thing that I used,
Yes
Mr.
or no?
Martinez.
Did you say, use this to tell us that the defendant was in an abusive relationship? Yes or no?
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes or no?
It's not a yes or no. Do you want the truth, Mr. Martinez, or do you want
Ma'am,
yes or
I'm
no?
asking you questions. You seem to be having trouble answering my questions.
I have
If
trouble.
if you have a
Yeah.
problem understanding the question, ask me that. If you want to, do you want to spar with me? Will that affect the way you view your testimony?
The state.
We approach on it.
Yes.
Now they finally get him to stop yelling. This might be actually really effective cross-examination if he can convince the jury that basically it's all perception and that just because Jodi feels terrorized doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Hey, bye, friend.
Hey, bye, friends. Yeah. For the one time in this trial where his personality, for me at least, works for him is now.
Yep. No, it
Because
really does.
here's the thing: the jury. We are on day 41. The jury they are used to him by now.
Yeah.
She's meeting him for the first time.
Those are the women that were laughing if you guys just joined us, at one point, the witness shot back to the prosecutor, "Are you angry at me, sir?" And he's like, "Why? What if you believe that I'm angry at you? Is that going to change your diagnosis?" Whatever. And these women started laughing.
Yes or no?
It was great.
With regard to this particular case, ma'am, you did refer to this exhibit 558. Yes or no?
I'll be right back.
I referred to it.
Yes or no?
Yes, I referred to it.
And when you referred to it, Ms. Wilmot was asking you questions about it. Yes or no?
Yes,
And she was asking you questions about that, and it involved the defendant, didn't it?
yes.
And it involved the defendant in your opinion as to whether or not she was somebody who was abused, correct?
Not exactly.
Well, is it somebody that was not abused then?
No, I don't rely particularly just on that, and it feels like that's what you're trying to get me to say.
Did you use this
As one part?
Right. Isn't that what you
I
used?
used it as one piece of information.
And what happened is you went to the diary, the journals, for example, right? You reviewed the journals here,
I
right?
reviewed the
And
journals.
then you went to this, which is exhibit number 558, and then you started to talk about how something in the journal was mirrored or set out in exhibit 558, right?
Something in just the journal? I'm not sure what you're asking. Are you asking me if the
Ma'am,
only?
Let me ask it this way. Do you
Okay.
remember talking to us about a lot of journal entries? Do you remember talking to us about that?
Yes,
Do you remember talking
We
about
have to
certain
wait for
dates?
Dave to come
right?
back because
Remember?
I
Yes.
don't control
And do you
the
remember
stream.
talking about what was written in those journals, right?
yes.
And you characterized what was written in those journals, right?
Some of
Sure.
what was written in the
Thank you to
journal.
the-
Yes, some of what was written in those journals, you
Random,
characterized it, right?
collective. Thank you so much.
Mr. Martinez, I'm not sure what you're saying.
With regard to the journals, do you remember talking about the journals?
I do.
Do you remember talking about specific dates in those journals, right?
I do.
And with regard to those journals, for example, with regard to the defendant, you indicated that she never said anything negative about Mr. Alexander, right?
Did we get a $25 rewind? What? You're muted.
Brokeback Baker. He wants to see Hot Lawyer Chick.
He wants to see Hot Lawyer Chick. Oh my God. Well, that's days ago.
Yeah.
That's days ago. Shazbak.
That was day 37 or 38.
That was,
Wasn't it?
yeah, that was days ago. Are we going back? All right, we'll keep playing it. I'll find it. I'll find Hot Lawyer
Yeah.
Chick.
Yeah. Okay.
Overruled. You may answer.
You remember saying that?
I said that I hadn't read anything that she said that was negative.
So if you didn't read anything that showed that there was anything negative, in your mind, there was nothing negative in those journals about Mr. Alexander, right? As written by the defendant, right?
There were selections of those journals.
Right. The journals that you reviewed here in court, ma'am. All of the journal selections that you reviewed here in court. And you did review more than those journal selections here in court, right?
Yes,
You reviewed all of the journals, right?
Miss Arias's journals.
Sure,
And
yes.
during that period of time.
Yes, you reviewed
I
her
didn't read
journals.
all of her journals.
You read journals aside from the ones that were presented here in court, right?
Yes, I did.
So as a result of those reading of those journals, you then said to us, for example, well, there is nothing in those journals that is said by the defendant negative about the person that she killed, right?
No, that's not true.
She's answered, her answer was standard.
Okay, tell me what negative things the defendant wrote about herself.
I thought you asked me if she said anything negative about Mr. Alexander.
Did you have a problem understanding the question? Tell me what negative things the defendant wrote about herself in those journals. That was my question.
Would you show me what you're referring to?
No, you're the one that just told us that you read journals before you came here into court, didn't you?
I did.
And you spent many hours, correct?
Yes, I
And you
did.
charged $250 an hour to read them, right?
The standard fee, Mr.
Am I asking if
Martinez.
that's a standard fee?
Apparently not.
And ma'am, and in those journals, the ones that you read, the ones that you can remember, can you think of anything negative that the defendant said about herself in those journals? Anything?
She talked about being depressed. She talked about, and there are numerous places where she talks about feeling bad about herself in places, not just in the journal, but
I'm
in
talking
places.
about the journals, ma'am. Remember, that's what we're talking about.
Morning.
Just the journals.
I read the journals.
Right, what else?
I read the journals, and you would have to show me specifically what you're talking about. I don't know what part of the journals you're talking about. And frankly, I read pages and pages of journals, Mr. Martinez.
I'm just talking
So
about.
when you're asking me to say something specific about what she said about herself, I had samples. Do you have samples to give me that I
Ma'am,
can see
I'm
where?
asking you from your reading of the journals, as you sit here today with the memory that you have intact, what can you tell us that she wrote that was negative? You did say that you read the journals, right?
I did read it.
Argumentative foundation date and time that he's referring to.
Overruled.
Right? You did say you read the journals, right?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us that is negative that she wrote in any of those journals?
You're asking me specific comments she made, and I can't tell you specifically what she said because I don't have the journal with me.
Oh, so in order for you to tell us what she wrote in the journal, you have to have it in front of your face so that you can read it, right?
Objection argumentative.
Sustained, rephrase.
Well, it seems to be what you're telling me is that your memory is lacking as to what was in those journals. Yes or no?
No.
All right, then give me another example.
Brokeback Baker with $5 shipper chat question, not to skip. I also have a question. Why is nobody restreaming Potter? Potter was before my time. That was great lawyering. Instead, everyone wants to restream garbage. Not this case, others. I haven't actually thought about restreaming Potter, but
Who's Potter?
that's the female cop that meant to grab the taser but grabbed the gun.
Oh, that one. Oh,
Yeah.
that one.
I don't know.
Mhm.
I might consider that. Or doing something with it anyways, because that was an interesting case. I was just watching it before I started streaming.
Thank you, Brokeback Baker.
Of what you read in those journals that is negative that the defendant said.
She talks about not being productive.
Okay, what else?
She talks about feeling lousy about herself.
Okay.
He's writing all this down. It's like, okay.
She
feels
talks
bad.
about
She is
not
happy.
being advanced in PPL the way she'd like to be advanced in PPL. She talks
He
about
doesn't
not
care what
having
answer is. It's
her
all
goals,
bullshit.
not forwarding her goals in the way she wants to.
Anything else?
I'm sure there are other
she's forced
things.
to give
But you just can't
examples,
remember
and all
right
of a
now, right?
sudden she
I can't.
chokes.
And all in all, what you've given us is a pretty positive picture of the defendant because
I found that
those
hot
kinds
lawyer,
of
by the
things
way.
that you're
We'll go
talking
back
about
there in a
are
minute.
really not that major in the grand scheme of things, are they?
They're not that major.
And ma'am, with regard to
That's
this issue
bad.
of how you conduct,
Oh.
All these things that she remembers. Yeah, they're really
She
not that
spent
major.
3 days on direct examination, and he gets her to say, not that major.
Not that major.
that you work. The way it really works is that you conduct the interviews and then you look at other sources, right?
Oh,
do.
Ice Cream
And that's what
Man.
you did in this case with the
I'm sorry, Ice Cream Man was pretty damn good. No,
exception that you only conducted one interview, right? The defendant's interview, right?
Yes.
And in this case, we are left, if you will, to follow this roadmap that you gave us, which is Exhibit 558. That is, in a sense, a roadmap, right?
It's a guideline.
It's a guideline, which means we can look at it to guide us to a goal, right?
It is a guideline. It is not a specific roadmap that will take you from here to here.
I'm not asking, I left the word roadmap behind. I actually used the word guideline. Isn't this a guideline that will take us to a certain decision or opinion by you? Isn't this in part, well, isn't this a guideline that you use?
It is a guideline.
And this is a guideline that you created, right?
Yes, it is.
So that you can change it whenever you want, right?
I have changed it.
Right. So the answer is this is your guideline and you can change it whenever you want, right?
Yes.
And in fact, with regard to using this guideline, isn't it true that you really don't even have to talk to any of the parties that are involved in order for you to reach your opinion?
I don't use a guideline that way, Mr. Martinez.
Well, are you familiar, back in 2010, are you familiar putting on a seminar and indicating that Snow White was a battered woman? Do you remember talking about that?
That's actually relevant.
Snow White was a battered woman.
Do you remember that? Yes or no?
No, that's, if you would like to show the entire YouTube video, I would be happy for anybody to see that, because I'm not talking, the title is Snow White a battered woman because it was catchy.
Right. So it does.
Okay, that might be streamed in my Discord.
Oh, I need to post that in my Discord as well.
That's
Is Snow White a battered woman? Holy fork.
is Snow White. Is it there? Let's see. Is Snow White a battered woman? Was Snow White a battered woman? Yep, there it is. Oh wait, nope, that's a Jodi area.
No, okay.
Snow White, gender, and the power. We'll find it.
Okay, yeah.
It's a TED Talk. It's a TED Talk.
What?
She's giving a TED Talk.
Oh.
Snow White, gender, and power. It's a TED Talk. Oh, we're gonna stream this.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All right.
Not today. Oh, next
No.
Saturday. Next Saturday.
All right. It's only like 15 minutes. We'll do this next Saturday. Okay. Brandon paid, so we're gonna do it. We're gonna go back to. We're ending with the cross-examination for today. Remember, if you guys are just joining us and you don't know, every Tuesday and Saturday, Nick and I stream Jodi Arias at noon Eastern, 6 p.m. Swedish time. We skipped a bunch of days. We're up to 41. The title of this video is day 37. But we're going to go back to day 38 now, where the prosecutor has been accused of potentially influencing a juror by having his fan club out in front of the courthouse, and the prosecutor is taking pictures and
Signing
and
autographs.
signing autographs.
And as evidence for this, Mr. Nurmi is calling a reporter for the Turner Network.
Yep. So we're going to go back and take a look at this. Thanks to Brandon's very generous $50 super chat. To Nicholas, I should add, by the way, not to me.
Thank you.
But we're going to do this, and then we'll see. That'll probably be it for the stream today.
Yeah.
Anyone who could not start at 9:30.
Counsel for the state posing with a woman who poses on HLN as one of Dr. Drew's jurors. I believe her name is Miss Witt. There has been video online of Mr. Martinez outside the courtroom signing autographs and posing for pictures. I do not have that video to provide the court today. I will do so next week. That was found in the Arizona Republic. I believe that this misconduct may very well have been seen by jurors. I didn't have any evidence to that effect until last night when Ms. Casares, working for HLN, went on and said that she observed a juror
Why did
seeing
they
Mr. Martinez's
focus on her?
fan club and
I don't know.
whatever you want to call it. In that regard, I'm asking this court, because she is
But she
present
is
in the courtroom
taking
today,
notes.
that Ms. Casares
and
be called
stuff.
forward to give testimony as to what she observed
And
and which
since it's
juror
the
she saw
network
watching
who
these events.
streamed this trial,
Mr. Martinez?
they probably know exactly
What
who
happens
that
outside
is.
the courtroom is not
And that
misconduct.
is the woman
Defense counsel may
Mr.
not like
Martinez
the fact that
talked to
people have come
and
up to the prosecutor and asked him
met
whatever it is that
outside
they asked him and
to
whether or not
write
they wanted
photographs.
to have a photograph with him. That is
Yeah, the
not
blonde's never
misconduct.
brought up on the
If
stand. The brunette
Defense counsel
lawyer.
believes that there was
or
a
CNN
juror that was there that saw it.
even if that were the case, that still would not be prosecutorial misconduct because this happened outside. The remedy in this case is to identify the juror, whoever that may be, to see if in fact that is true. Because as we know, sometimes facts are not quite what they seem or are the way they are reported. And once we ascertain what that issue is, the course is to then ask the jurors whether or not they actually saw it.
I have
we saw whether or not
of
that would affect their
news
ability
here,
to be
Dave,
fair and impartial.
and I just got the email that the copyright I had on day 16 of the Young Thug trial has been retracted because they didn't review my contesting of it for 30 days.
Oh,
So now
nice.
I can start making I'm 50 cent in ad revenue of that. I don't know.
Nice.
But here's the thing. I saw it the day after. They put a copyright, not a copyright strike at least, but they put a copyright thingy.
Yeah,
I contested it, and then they just 30 days later, they didn't do anything about it. And so what happened there is that is what some people do to punish you. They don't want any legal matters. They just, okay, because after 30 days, nobody's interested anymore.
Yeah.
So that entire stream was a dud for me financially. Complete dud. I get 0 from that one.
Yeah, I know. But at least they didn't challenge it. That was Young Thug, by the way. That copyright claimed their own trial.
Yeah,
Because one of their songs was played
yeah.
during their trial.
Yeah, his song was played during the trial against them as evidence in court, and I got a copyright strike for it. Not a strike, but copyright thingy.
To write something that happens outside of court, such as taking a photograph, is not misconduct. But I have no objection to calling a witness and asking whatever questions might be relevant to the
Taking
defendant.
photographs.
Misconduct, certainly, Your Honor, and the rules tell us that misconduct is certainly not limited to the courtroom. Lawyers cannot go out and give extrajudicial statements. I can't go out and hold a press conference. And what Mr. Martinez did outside is really akin to that. We have a person who I believe is a lawyer, is officer of the court. I don't believe this is First Amendment privilege to observe these things, and certainly there might be jurors who might not want to be so forthcoming. So I believe that the best course of action is to
my channel, and look at that name he shows.
That's a wrench on your channel.
Yeah.
hold this evidentiary hearing. I will submit the video at issue next week and call Ms. Casoris for her observations. And then once we do that, because we have clear evidence that this took outside the courthouse, regardless of what she has to say, that we speak with each one of the jurors individually to see if they observed anything, because there could have been more jurors than what was observed. Having watched having seen the picture, it's obvious that it's right in front of the courthouse. Having seen the video, it was obviously at least a few minutes. There were several individuals interviewed about how great he is and that sort of thing. So it's entirely possible that more than one juror saw this. I don't know how many days, a week this goes on, because I'm not privy to that. But extra conduct, the misconduct is not aimed at the courthouse walls. Like I said, an evidentiary hearing is warranted with Ms. Casoris.
Yeah, he's using one account.
Ms. Casoris, are you present in the courtroom?
Another of his accounts.
Please come forward.
This is hilarious.
All right, Brandon wanted this. He paid $50 to see this woman testify again.
Yep.
Good morning. You had an opportunity to hear Mr. Nurmi. He would like an opportunity to question you under oath regarding what you observed. Are you comfortable proceeding with that at this time?
Yes, I am.
All right, please come forward. Right up here.
Why does he have a funeral tie on him? It's a white tie.
I know, I saw that too. I know.
To be able to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I
so
don't
help you
own a
God?
white
Yes,
tie.
thank you.
Please walk right around here and have a seat.
Yeah, when you reach a certain age, you tend to find yourself at more funerals than weddings.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ms. Casoris, am I saying it right?
Jean Casoris,
Okay,
yes.
thank you, Ms. Casoris. For whom are you employed?
I am an attorney and I'm a legal correspondent for Turner Broadcasting, which is in session, and I do work on HLN and CNN.
And as part of your duties for HLN and CNN as a correspondent, have you been covering the proceedings against Ms. Arias?
Yes, I have.
And when did you begin your work on this case? In terms of the trial, I should say.
I came here, I think, 2 weeks after the trial started, 1 or 2 weeks,
Okay. And have you been here on a daily basis or near daily basis?
daily basis.
Okay. As part of your commentary then on these networks, I suspect it is your desire to be as truthful and forthcoming as possible. Is that
Of
accurate?
course.
Okay. And as it relates to your observations during the trial, you've also been paying attention to the jurors, correct?
I look at them, yes.
Okay. You recognize them?
Not all of them, but the ones that I can see.
Okay. And as a matter of fact, you are one of the reporters that uses the vans or mobile, I'm sure you have a name for one, the mobile studios? Okay.
Yes.
And you're involved in that. That's about a block from the courthouse, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. How do you gain access and egress to the courthouse?
Through the front door.
Okay, you go through the main door that everybody else does. Okay. Now, in your true and accurate reporting that you did, you were on either HLN or CNN or perhaps others I didn't see last night, correct?
Yes, with the time difference, it might be the afternoon here, but yes, I'm on
Okay.
a lot of shows.
Okay. And in one of those reports, you reported that you made observations of a juror seeing Mr. Martinez outside the courtroom, right?
I did not. If I could explain, I will tell you the question posed to me and my answer that I gave.
Okay.
They were doing a segment on Mr. Martinez and the public wanting to shake his hand, wanting autographs, wanting pictures. And so I was asked, as a correspondent and as an attorney, I believe, my thoughts on that. And I said that I see the video, and I said I have seen a juror just sitting outside the front door of the courthouse. I've seen him walk through the front doors. To me, jurors are sacred, but I can look because I have eyes.
Fair enough.
And I said my concern would be if a juror would see that. That would be my concern.
And based on you telling us that you didn't observe any jurors seeing that.
No, but I have seen at least one juror outside, and I
Anyone
saw
want
the
to
video.
guess
I did
what
not.
Brandon's wife looks like? Does he have a type
Because
like most men
many
do?
people were saying it was great and it was wonderful. And my thought was, legally speaking, my concern would be if a juror would see that.
Okay. Approach.
You may.
Mr. Soros, I want to show you what's marked the purposes of this hearing. As exhibit number 1. Do you recognize the woman in exhibit number 1 with Mr. Martinez?
Yes, I do. I don't know her. I recognize her.
Okay. She works for your network, doesn't she?
I don't believe so, but that's not my job to know who works for the network and who doesn't.
Okay. And in the photograph, do you see Mr. Martinez and this young lady?
It's
Yes.
interesting that they directly zoomed into that blonde in the background with a notepad.
I bet
These
he's the one
instances
in
of
the
Mr.
video.
Martinez and the people desiring to shake his hand or what have
What were you saying?
Is that
Yeah,
something you saw once?
That
or
should
more than
that
once?
must be the woman they are referring to, who was in the video.
Okay. So what you
And
saw was.
I don't think it's
what was online,
far-fetched
posted online? Is that what
to
you're telling me?
think that
On
that is
HLN,
the
when they were doing a segment and they showed some
home
video
reporter,
and they
blogger.
asked me a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
She's
you were
480p
not
hot, not
the
4K hot.
Here's the thing. I believe, if I read it correctly, back then she was past 40. That's good looking for 40.
I've never seen him walk out the front doors.
Other than this one
past
indication that
40,
he may have
Nick.
walked out of the doors one time.
Yeah, you're good looking for 40.
Is there any
You
other
are,
video
Dave.
that you are
You-
aware of where the prosecutor may have walked?
You're
out
the
those
trophy
doors?
husband,
No, I don't
remember?
track video.
That's right.
Can you redirect?
You just said you don't keep track of video.
Well, that's not my job.
Okay, well, I'm not attacking you for that. I'm just wondering, apart from the video that you were shown, you said you were shown a video and then you commentate on it yesterday. Have you seen any other videos of this taking place?
Not that I can remember, no.
Thank you.
Say Nermi looks like
Give me
someone
something.
Chris Hansen would tell that would say to take a seat.
Council approach, please.
All right. That's it. That is, there goes your woman. All right. We're done for today. We made it all the way up to day 41. That was a good stream. It was a good solid 3 days. We were wrapped up in one stream.
Yeah, I mean, we have certain days we spent 5 streams on.
I know.
And here, 3 days just passed by. Oh. Yeah, I'm past 50 and nobody thinks I'm lying.
So on Tuesday, yeah, right. Some people just have the look. On Tuesday, we'll
I
pick up-
aged like fine wine.
On Tuesday we'll pick up cross-examination of the wonderful whatever her name is, Dr. Lady, who, remember, words are violence, words are terrorism.
Words are terrorism. I saw this terrorist use words. Okay.
Dave is in retirement mode. I absolutely am in retirement mode.
Yeah. It's better to blow $50 on YouTube than at least to blow someone for $50 on YouTube.
There you go.
Oh, the
All
chat
right.
has been on fire today.
Yes.
Yeah.
That woman was woke before woke. Yeah, she really was.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
I was listening to it before the stream just to see where we were and what we were going to get. And I'm like, this is where it started. This is where the Me Too, words are violence.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
whole thing started.
What's her name? Alyssa Milano is often credited with the Me Too movement. That was in 2014 or 2015.
Yeah. I mean, that's right after this. Maybe she watched the trial.
I don't know, but somewhere this got traction, and here it is, January or February 2013. There it is. The birth in the public eye, maybe, of Believe All Women.
Yep.
And as I said earlier, if a client comes to me with a story, of course I will believe them. Then I need to verify it.
Exactly.
Then my opinion might change.
Well, believe most women. We can start with that. Well, let's take the accusation at face value, but then I don't know, investigate, right?
Investigate, verify, find evidence.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything else to say for this stream other than we'll see what else comes up with Cross. I'm really enjoying Cross at this moment. That's been really enjoyable. So we'll continue that on Tuesday at noon Eastern.
Yeah. And Monday, Young Thug continues. Tomorrow is members only stream. And it's Young Thug all week next week, except Tuesday at noon Eastern time. And I think you won the likes.
Nicholas for Young Thug. Yeah, I did. I won the likes, but you won everything else.
Yep, I won the super chats, and I even got a membership.
You did. You got a gifted membership. I got no gifted memberships and a lot less super chats than you got. Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you, Brandon. Isn't it amazing how the same words can sound so different?
The emphasis. It's amazing how that works.
Yeah.
I feel like mine was more terroristic than yours.
Yeah.
My words.
Yeah. Next Friday, the Sakura Anderson interview, fundraiser, and the return of the Wheel of Regrets.
That'll be an amazing disaster. I'll be hanging out in the background if you need me to shut something down.
That might be. I saw Brandon asking me earlier, how many slots is it on the Wheel of Regrets? All right. And most of them are hot sauce. A few of them are freshly shredded horseradish, and then different kind of alcohols.
You absolutely see it works. You can gift memberships to a retired streamer. See, it works just fine.
Oh, look at that! But giving it to yourself doesn't count.
No, he said you can't gift memberships to a retired streamer. Who said that? Whiskey.
Brandon.
Yeah.
Oh, whiskey. Yeah. Okay.
But I'm saying, look, you can. Works just fine.
Yeah. I already gifted all 10 free of charge memberships this month.
I didn't even realize you could still do that, so I haven't been doing that. But alrighty. Well, thanks everyone in chat. Thanks for the super chat. And we'll see you guys. I'll see you guys on Tuesday. So not very long. And then in the meantime, go watch Nick. Go subscribe to Nick. Go watch him Young Thug. It's highly entertaining stuff.
Oh, it is. This mug has never been more accurate.
Do you have a little swoop for it now too? You need to get a swoop.
A swoop for this.
Like
Yeah.
can't un-F a
Oh,
swoop.
yeah, maybe. I should do one of those.
Yeah.
I have my fire farting dragon, and I have ho ho ho, says Santa Claus.
Yeah, you have that one.
That is more of
Oh.
a statement than a swoop, but yeah. I can... Oh,
All right.
should I
Well,
do a
thanks. You all.
sleeveless stream with Val?
Oh, yeah. By the way, we're all sending you guys over to Salvador.
Yeah.
So go tell them we said hi.
And thank you everybody for showing up. And I will see the members tomorrow and for Young Thug on Monday. All right.
All right. Take care. Bye, guys.
Bye.
The State of Arizona versus Jodi Arias, verdict, count 1. We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled action upon our oaths, do find the defendant as to count 1, first-degree murder.